So typically a Coke commercial is incredibly expensive to create, ranging anywhere between $500,000 and $3 million depending on the concept. But today I'm going to be attempting to shoot one at a fraction of the cost. In fact, I'm going to be shooting everything on my phone on this table. I'm going to walk you through the process step by step, show you all of the behind the scenes, plus give you some tips so that you can do the same and create something similar. Now, this video is not sponsored by Coke in any way. This is purely for educational purposes, but this video is, however, sponsored by Motion Array. I'll be using Motion Array later in this video to help create the final sequence. Okay, let's jump straight in and I'll show you the setup. So on the table here, I've got some Coke cans, some lemons. These will make great props. I've also got a few accessories to help with filming. I want to capture a good mix of handheld shots to show you that you don't need lots of fancy camera gear to create something like this, as well as some more unique tools for some more creative shots. Now, for simplicity, I'm going to try and shoot this commercial in chronological order as much as possible. So let's set up the first shot and dive straight in. Okay, so I've got a can on the table, I've got my phone in this phone holder, and I've got this small tube light lighting the can, but there are a few problems with this shot. Now, the first is lighting and colors. At the moment, this can just doesn't pop enough. It doesn't stand out as much as what I'd like against this black backdrop. So I want to add some light to this back wall. Now, I've got these bigger tube lights that are perfect for this. These will help evenly light the backdrop. But look, if you are doing something like this similar yourself, don't feel as though you need to have tube lights. I'm just using these because I have them. Before I had these, I was using these things here. I picked these up for 10 quid on Amazon. They're not as bright, they're not as good, but they'll do the job. So if you don't have anything like this, just use what you have or start with cheaper gear and work your way up. Now, I could mimic the color of the can and light this wall red for a more on-brand effect, but to be honest, this just creates the same problem. It doesn't really make the can pop. If anything, it blends it into the background more. So how do we make this can pop? Well, we use contrast. Let's take a look at the color wheel. What colors are opposite red? We've got greens and blues. I prefer blue, so let's light this wall blue, and we now have a much more interesting look. The red really pops against this blue background. Now, the next problem that we have is that this can doesn't look particularly cold or refreshing, and nobody wants to drink a room temperature Coke. So I want to create the illusion that this can is cold, and we can do this by adding some fake condensation. So I've stolen my wife's spritzer, I've filled it with tap water, and by spritzing this can, we've now not only added more texture and interest, but it also now looks much more refreshing. This is what the can looked like before, and this is what the can looks like now. These water droplets are also going to add movement as well as reflect light. So a really great way of adding more production value to this shoot. Now, with this being one of the first shots of the sequence, I don't necessarily want to show the whole can straight away. I want to create a bit of intrigue and anticipation, so I'm going to do this by revealing the can slowly. So I'm going to switch off all of the lights apart from the lights on the back wall. This will create a nice silhouette, and then I'm going to spin my small tube light like this to reveal the can. Okay, pretty happy with how those shots came out? Let's move on to the next. Okay, so for this shot, I've got my phone low down on the table like this. I want to grab a shot of multiple cans. I don't know about you, but whenever I have a Coke, I like to have it with ice and a slice. So I want to try and replicate that refreshing feeling in this commercial. I'm also going to lay some lemons next to these cans and do the same again, revealing these cans using this tube light. Okay, so we've definitely got enough shots of static cans. Now let's add some movement. And essentially there are three ways that we can add movement to this sequence. The first is with light, like what we've been doing. The product is still, but the light is moving. The second is to move the product. And the third is to move the camera. But for now, let's focus on these cans and get them moving. So for this shot, I've placed the can on a Lazy Susan. Again, you can pick these up pretty cheap on Amazon or from any kind of home goods store. Again, I've given the can a good old spritz, but another problem that I had was getting my phone nice and close to the can without it moving. Because the Lazy Susan is spinning, I've had to attach my phone to this adjustable camera mount, and this allows me to get my camera nice and close to the can and still spin the Lazy Susan. Also, because I know some of you will ask, I am shooting everything on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, 4K 24 frames per second. Some of these are in 4K 60 frames per second, and I'm tapping to lock my focus and exposure for each shot. I also have the macro setting enabled for some of these shots. You'll know when this is enabled because you'll get this flower icon on your phone, and this will allow me to capture nice close-up detailed shots. Now the key here is to smoothly spin the can, revealing the most interesting parts of the can and its branding. Extra points if you can time it just right to catch a water droplet running down the side as it spins. Now, as great as this Lazy Susan is, this one is manual, meaning that I need to spin it myself. And the problem with this is that it can be very difficult to get a smooth, consistent movement. So if I wanted to spin this can multiple times and then speed ramp the footage, it's going to look very jerky. So if you have any kind of a budget and you plan on doing something like this, I recommend investing in an electric 360 spinner like this one here. I picked this one up for 15 quid, and the beauty of this one is that you can spin your product as many times as you like hands-free whilst capturing a smooth, consistent movement. And this means you can get much more creative in the edit when it comes to speed ramps and sound effects. Now, another tool that I'd like to grab some shots with on this shoot is this mini electric camera slider. I can attach my phone to the top of it like this, and then by simply pressing this button, the phone will now slide either forwards or backwards or left or right. So I'm going to grab some shots of these cans and lemons sliding to the left like this. Now again, you don't need an electric slider to capture shots like this, just use what you have. And if you don't have anything, just use your hands. Here is the exact same shot again, pulling back using my hands. And if anything, I actually prefer this shot because I'm able to put a slight tilt on it. You can also do the same by sliding left to right. Your camera movement might not be as precise or consistent, but with a bit of practice, you'll be surprised just how good you can get these shots to look. Now, another little trick I like to do, particularly when shooting smaller products like this one here, is to use my laptop screen as a digital backdrop. So since the theme of this shoot is Coke and lemons, I'm going to use some footage of some lemons launching into the air. Now, I could of course shoot this myself, but let's be honest, that's going to take time and probably cause a huge mess. So instead, I'm just going to use stock footage. I'm using Motion Array for this, by the way. They've got a huge archive of stock footage, as well as many other digital assets, so really useful for your video projects. So I've got my Coke on my laptop, I've got my lemons exploding in the background. I'm going to hit record and see what we've got. Okay, so we've definitely got enough shots of the cans. Now let's actually capture some shots of the Coke itself. But before we can do that, we're going to need to open a can. So I've put my phone on one of these bendy tripods. I've angled it down to the top of this can, and I've placed some lemons in the background to help make this shot look a little bit more interesting. Now, just as I was about to open this can, I realized I'd made a classic rookie error and not spritzed the top. So I'm going to add a little bit of spritz and we're good to go. Beautiful. Okay, now no Coke is complete without a glass and some ice. So let's capture some shots of some ice falling into a glass. Not the most exciting shot, this one, so let's quickly move on and pour the Coke. Now I'm going to start with a safety shot, a wide static shot of the Coke pouring over the ice like this. But I also want to try something much more creative, and this is where this thing comes in. This is a 360 spinning camera rig. You put your camera or your phone on this bit here, you place your product or your focal point on this table here, and then the camera spins around it like this. So what I'm thinking is if I put a glass of ice on this table like this and then pour the Coke whilst the camera spins around like this, we should get a shot spinning around the glass as the Coke pours. I'm going to have to do this all by myself, so I'm not sure how successful this is going to be, but let's give it a go. Also, to save keep opening cans and wasting the good Coke, I'm just going to fill up this can with some cheap cola. Okay, glass ready, can ready. Let's get the camera in position, pour and spin. I reckon I can do this at least a few times before the glass gets full, so let's maximize our shots. Also, I'm going to shoot some of these shots at 4K 60 frames per second and a few more at 120 frames per second. I will need to drop the resolution down to 1080p for this, but let's give it a go and take a look. Okay, not bad. We are doing well, but we're definitely missing some close-up detailed shots of the bubbles and the fizz filling the glass. So let's get our phone nice and close, macro setting enabled, and pour some drinks. Okay, so what I've noticed here is that in order to get the best shot where the bubbles are in nice crisp focus, you first need to lock your focus and exposure when the glass is full, and then not move the glass because that will change the focus. So I've been having to empty the glass without moving it by sucking the liquid through this straw. And look, as you can see at the start of this shot, it looks very overexposed because it is. That's because I've locked the exposure for when the glass is full, not empty. Also, you can't see the can in this shot, so we're back on the cheap fizz. Now, the goal here is to capture fizz, bubbles, and movement. And the key to this, apart from getting your camera nice and close, is to backlight the glass. Without the light behind the glass, the Coke will be really dark with not much interest or detail, but as soon as we shine some light through it, we immediately see the bubbles, the fizz, the ice, and this makes for a much more pleasing shot. Okay, I am so close to having everything that I need for this final sequence, but one thing I'm definitely missing is a hero shot, the final shot to this sequence, and I really want this to be a good one. I want to end this commercial strong. Now, I had this idea of using my tripod as a DIY camera rig that starts with a top-down shot and then pulls back and down to reveal a glass of Coke sat between some cans and lemons, but this was much harder to pull off than I anticipated. The main problem with this is that when you shoot on a phone, your lens isn't centered like a traditional camera. It's off to the left or the right, so capturing a perfectly symmetrical shot like this was incredibly difficult. That, plus I just couldn't nail the camera move. So instead, I thought I would try something a little easier but still had that hero shot feel to it. So I placed a slice of lemon on the rim of the glass, poured the last of the Coke to create some bubbles and movement, and then started with my camera nice and close and pulled back. I ended up being really happy with how this shot came out. The perfect hero shot to end this commercial. Now at the moment, of course, we just have a bunch of random clips with no music, no sound effects, and without all of this, this commercial is just going to feel cheap and amateur. So I'm going to grab as many digital assets as I can to help raise the production value of this sequence. And for this, I'm going to head over to Motion Array. Motion Array literally has everything that you could need for your video projects. Stock footage like the lemons that you saw earlier, overlays, title templates, music, sound effects. So if you didn't capture the sound effect of a Coke fizzing or pouring, for example, you could just download it here. But also, very interestingly, they've just released a brand new voiceover feature, and this is something that I'm really keen to experiment with. Now, usually I would just use my own voiceover, but for this Coke commercial, no, I just don't think it's going to work. So instead, I'm going to choose from a range of voiceover options here. I can filter by gender, category, just click on one of these to hear a sample.
When you've got a thirst to quench, grab a Coke.
Okay, not bad. Now, once you've found one that you like, just paste your script into this box. You can adjust the speed, the emotion, and you're done. So if you're looking for some digital assets or you'd like to try this voiceover feature, I will leave a link where you can sign up below for free with limited access or sign up for a subscription with unlimited access. And if you're someone that makes videos on a regular basis, this is an absolute no-brainer. Okay, so we've shot all of our footage on a phone. We've added music, sound effects, a voiceover. We've edited everything together. Now let's take a look and see the results.
When you've got a thirst to quench, when you're craving something cold and refreshing, grab a Coke. Every can, a promise of pure, ice-cold satisfaction. That cool, exhilarating sensation that only Coke can deliver. Crisp, chill, and refreshing with every sip. Coke, the taste you know, the refreshment you crave.
So what did you think of that final sequence? If you hadn't have seen all the behind the scenes, do you think you would have known that that was shot using just a phone? Do let me know in the comments section below. If you'd like to learn more about shooting using just your smartphone, then be sure to check out these two videos here. But that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.